Welcome to the Alchemists Inkwell.
This is the spiritual podcast for grounded people.
I'm Emily, and I'm basically wearing pajamas today.
I'm KristaLyn, and I'm basically wearing sweaters and pajamas every day. So,
yeah, usually I'm only in leggings and then like a comfy shirt. Today it's like fuzzy sweatpants.
It's
like that.
It is
level.
a fuzzy sweatpants kind of week, though. And it's funny because I was listening to another astrologer's podcast this morning, and he said, this week is not very busy with transits. And I was like, no, but it is kind of heavy with them. So it's not about quantity of transits this week. It's about quality. Because if you think about it, of the few transits we have between the airing of this episode and the next, those transits are Mercury retrograde, Sun conjunct Pluto, a full moon in Cancer, the shift of the nodes, and Aquarius season.
Oh, not
I
busy.
Can't tell you any one of those is like mild. They are all life like shifting and transformative, and literally every single one of these is like, oh, transformation. By the way, you may want to give yourself time and like steadiness and measuredness as you're going through all this transformation. It's just a lot.
It's hilarious. And I don't know if our listeners actually understand this, but like I'll do my forecast for the week on Monday. I never talked to Krista beforehand. It's just me channeling the energy of the week and going off of that. And then we get on to record these and I'm always like, Jesus, like we bounce off so well with the astrology and it makes me laugh so hard because what I literally said for everybody this week is like, this week is about making yourself as comfortable as possible. Everything else is going to feel really uncomfortable, but if you can make yourself as comfortable as possible, that's how you'll get through. And you basically just said the same thing, which is just, it's so funny to me how the energy to me looks without having the astrological backup. And then you look at a chart and you back it up and it's, I don't know, it's just really interesting.
Yeah. So the main themes, and like if I had to qualify all of these into just a couple basic keywords, which funny enough, because the nature of these do blend together pretty well, it would be a just understanding a lack of control and giving yourself time and space and breathing before taking action, because you do have a lot of interactions with Pluto or Pluto-like situations this week. I mean that with the nodes, which are usually, which do correspond with eclipses. And I'll explain that a little bit when I'm talking about the full moon, because it comes into play there. And just Uranus going direct, the sun moving, Saturn, Mercury kind of approaching conjunct Saturn and then backing it up and being like, yeah, nope, not yet. I'm going to go retrograde first. I did my skit for that this week and I made myself laugh. So I hope everybody enjoys that on TikTok. I love when I get them and I make myself laugh because I always hope that those are everybody else's favorites too. So what we've got along with that though, we have like the sun today, and thank you. I really appreciate that. Today, as we're recording this, which is the 10th, so you'll be hearing this a couple days later, but the sun this week actually sent a trine to Neptune. So Neptune is about dissolving boundaries. It's that, if we think of a lake and then you make it an ocean, the way you make it an ocean is you dissolve the boundaries around the lake and let it spread out, right? So if you think about Neptune being a dissolving of boundaries, that sort of spiritual, it's like a mist. It just, you don't know where it begins and it ends, and it creates confusion, or it allows for a lot of depth if you explore that. And so with Neptune kind of coming in to a couple of these things, we do have this dissolving of boundaries. That's a big thing right now. And how do you allow for that? It's detachment. Pluto demands detachment. Neptune creates the opportunity for detachment.
Okay. So everything you just said, I just want to share this one little tidbit I learned over the weekend.
Yeah.
In San Francisco, the fog is so prolific that the locals have nicknamed it Carl. And when you're talking, so you're talking about like Neptune and being detached from the fogginess it gives you, and I'm like, you could just call it Carl.
You could just give it a name, and that is how you proactively use it, right? Like, I don't understand you, but if I give you a name, I can relate to you, and that makes so much sense. That's how you detach. So, oh my God, I love that. I'm gonna have to name something Carl in honor of the fog.
They shared it on a kids' TV show, and they just made this little fog bubble come up, and it had a little happy face, like Carl. I was like, that's awesome. So if you're having brain fog, name it.
Yeah, I love that. I swear I just heard an Animal Crossing sound. So I apologize. I don't know where it came from, but I heard a familiar sound and I'm like, where do I know that from? Oh, I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing.
It's
I don't
okay.
know
I have like
what that has to do
6
with
different
anything.
spirits trying to talk to me right now. So I
Yeah.
totally get it. It's
It's
fine.
I am, if any listeners are listening and you're going through a time where you're just like, I can't control it, so I'm just going to laugh. That is very much the energy of this week. I'm going through a very similar situation. I know Emily is going through a similar situation that is showing up in differently detailed ways in our lives.
Yep.
So if you are going through something that feels that way, just know detachment is just, laughing and saying what will be, que sera, sera, however you want to say it. What was the c'est la vie? That's life. So whatever language you choose to really remind yourself that you can go with the flow, that's going to be very helpful. So do we want to dive in and just talk about the transits this week, just to really navigate?
I really think we should. All of them are really important. So I do really want to encourage you guys. Ordinarily, I don't necessarily say this, but if you can take notes at all on just dates and how it's going to come to you, it's going to give you consciousness to help you navigate. Or if you just want to come back and listen to the snippet again about that date when it comes up, anything like that. The only reason I say that is right now everything feels so out of control and the energy of collective is so massively intense that it's very easy to get overwhelmed. So I just want to encourage everybody, like writing things down gives you an anchor point to come back to. So if you can, even if you just jot down the dates and like a general theme of what's going to happen at that time, I think it'll be really beneficial.
Yeah. And if you want to dive into more of the astrology of this month, just overall, so you can get like a big picture feeling of it, I do have the January astrological forecast on our Alchemists YouTube. And I do have timestamps there for the different lunations and Aquarius seasons. So you'll be able to kind of jump to roughly where this stuff will be in that video. And this is going to be a little bit different than the video because we've lived a little bit of January now. So I can put it into slightly more specific context rather than a more general archetypal, this is what we can expect. Now I'm able to sort of attach it to, hey, this is where we're going to likely see stuff happen because this is where things have been moving. So the first thing that happens is on Friday, the 14th, if you're interested in specific times, Mercury will station retrograde and begin moving backwards at 6:42 a.m. Eastern time. And that should be the same in every time. So adjust it for your time zone to know when that is for you. But Mercury will station retrograde nearly conjunct Saturn. And when I say nearly conjunct, that's because Mercury is at 10 degrees in Aquarius and Saturn is at 13. So they're pretty close. They're close enough to be like, hey, they're blending there. They are just about to high five. And then Mercury's just like, maybe not. It's like, I'm going to actually like style my hair. That whole thing that they do.
Very Mercury-esque thing to do as well.
Yeah. Well, and Mercury in Aquarius, right? So if we think about what you can expect from Mercury in Aquarius, Mercury is going to retrograde from the 14th of January until the 3rd of February. That is the retrograde period. It has been in its pre-shadow phase since the 29th of December. So things that have been coming up for you since December 29th that have already been like, hey, this doesn't work quite well. For me personally, funny enough, Mercury is going to retrograde through my 3rd house of communication and technology. My ice machine on my fridge is broken. I've had a bunch of like computer technology issues, sound issues on certain web browsers. And I am aware that as I'm mulling over, I would really like to fix that. I'm already procrastinating on calling the fridge guy. I'm already procrastinating on figuring out the sound issues because I know that during Mercury retrograde, they will be sorted out. So between now and February 3rd, I will figure these things out. I will solve those problems. And then after February 3rd, we enter the post-shadow phase until February 24th, when all of the things get ironed out. And then, hey, the car's fixed. Now we can drive it. And that's what I recommend anybody do. Right now, it's going to start out in Aquarius, but it will enter into Capricorn part of the way through. So it will go back into Capricorn. And so what I would recommend is while we're, in the Aquarius phase, some ideas, some higher concepts, some social interactions, maybe the things that are under the effect of it. So recently you may have noticed like a lot of social interactions have been just wonky, just missing that connection, not quite understanding each other on an intellectual level. And then earlier around the 29th of December, you may have noticed like stuff in your house not working, especially when it comes to stuff that is infrastructural, because both of these are ruled by Saturn. Saturn rules both Capricorn and Aquarius traditionally. So you have to think of Saturn as the structure. And in like medical astrology, that would be what's the structure of the body, the bones. So everybody says, during a retrograde like this or any Saturn retrograde, have you gotten your teeth checked? Have you, had an alignment or anything like that? Think about servicing those things which could use some maintenance right now, because you are giving them support so that they then can run sturdy and move forward. So like if you're someone who would have your car serviced at a certain time, this is a great time to get your car serviced, especially with Mercury. Mercury rules transport. So thinking about getting your car into the garage if it hasn't been in a while, and there's a strange light on the dashboard, this is a great time to be like, hey, that light, I should probably get that looked at. So those are your main themes. To know what it's going to do for you, I did mention how it goes through my third house. You're going to want to look at your personal birth chart. If you want a free one, you can go to astro.com, run your birth date, location, and time through their chart creator. And I recommend doing whole sign houses. It makes it easier to read. And it is also the closest to the traditional way of reading them. And then you'll be able to see where Capricorn and Aquarius are in your chart and what areas of life those houses correspond to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, don't talk about my dashboard lights. We're just going to start there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How dare you? No, it's so genuine. And it's so interesting because when I look at the energy of Mercury retrogrades, I always have kind of like a theme that comes across. And of course it affects everybody differently based on where it is in your chart and all sorts of things. But like the last Mercury retrograde was less travel, more technology. The one before that was extreme travel stuff and that kind of thing. And this one is very interesting. I'm glad that you pointed out the infrastructure, because I was seeing that too, of more of like depth of maintenance and like not necessarily technology in the way that we think of technology where we're like, oh, my phone or whatever. It's more of technology as in like, we have running water.
Yeah.
It's that level. It's like an earthy type, I guess is the best.
Also thinking about, Aquarius is something that I associate, and I know a lot of astrologers have kind of presumed this as well, as we're trying to figure out how the internet fits into an astrological house that was originally conceived of and given its archetype centuries and millennia ago. I tend to put social networks and the internet, since it is an infrastructure that connects so many people to other people and societies together, it's like a society in and of itself. I tend to associate that with Aquarius. So thinking about, the internet is actually going through its Saturn return right now as well. So considering that the internet's Saturn is in Aquarius, and now Mercury is going to retrograde through Aquarius while the internet is going through its Saturn return and entering a new phase of its own being, its infrastructure is being kind of reassessed and rebuilt and things. So, you might notice a lot of Twitter down, TikTok down, Facebook down, all those things, which we've seen this year already as the internet has been going through this phase. But those glitches, and that's a great term for a Mercury retrograde, particularly in a technology or electricity associated kind of sign, glitches are to be expected. And that's something you may see it more in like the world collectively as compared to your personal life. I know last Mercury retrograde, right around the start of it, my phone screen broke. So like literally my technology, and I can't remember specifically which part of my chart it was going through at the time, but I was like, okay, taking that into account as we are in pre-shadow, my phone screen almost broke. I got to take good care of my phone for the next couple of weeks because that's the thing that's under scrutiny right now. So appreciate the things that keep you connected to other people. So those kinds of things will come up, and it's a cycle, right? So this is the beginning of the story. We will go through the adventure, and then we will have the culmination and the resolution of the story. And that would be the retrograde cycle itself. And on the 16th it's going to be an interesting day as well, because the sun will conjoin Pluto. So it's so funny because the sun is something that you think of as life, right? It is life-giving. It's the fire. It's our authority, our identity, our self.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think of Pluto, and if you think of, Pluto being the god of the underworld, and I like to really put that out there because Pluto can be a signifier of endings, which could include, physically certain types of deaths. So endings, just really abrupt endings to things. So you have this life meeting death, or meeting an ending, or a darkness, or that underworld kind of thing, what the sun does while it's under the horizon kind of feeling. So I'm expecting, especially Pluto being a transcendent kind of planet, it's really far out there, it moves really slowly, so the effects take a long time to really show up, and they show up like a trickle for everyone rather than just a personal planet that moves so quickly through your own signs. Right. So Pluto is in Capricorn as well. The sun will also be in Capricorn. We've got the Mercury retrograde and Saturn in there. So it's just a lot of, things breaking down so that we can rebuild them. And that is the whole, I really like to remind people of the Phoenix cycle, right? Mm-hmm. If you think of even Harry Potter, the Phoenix burst into flame, and then out of the ashes, which are very fertile and very nourishing, rose this new life, this new thing that could not have happened without the thing before it. Mm-hmm. So nothing is lost or taken from you. It is just transforming, literally reforming, becoming something new into this new phase that is more than it was before and builds on top of what came before it. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind. Ways that could show up is if you think of the sun as ego and Pluto as transformation, you may notice like a little mini, in spiritual context, they would call that an ego death, but it could just be a decision to live your life with a sense of intention and purpose. And just, as you always say, living on purpose. Yeah. And just realizing that this is a turning point. There is no going back, and you wouldn't want to. That is something that may kind of culminate around the 16th this week as we get ready for that full moon the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I personally usually only do card pulls like maybe once a week and on important days and that kind of thing. One of the big energies, like when I said I had like 6 spirits trying to talk to me, they were like, you need to do card pulls like every day this week to like watch how the energy transforms. So I'm going to just recommend that to everybody else as well. If you do card pulls, do it. If that feels aligned with you, I think that feels really good too, especially this weekend, starting on Mercury retrograde, like monitor how your energy is progressing through. And also leading up to the full moon, which I know you're going to talk about right now, which is awesome. But start thinking about like noticing the places where you want to release things that are stopping you from like spiritual growth, because that's a lot of themes coming through. And that's kind of how I see a lot of the death stuff too, that comes in with that conjunction, is a lot of like death of false ideas of yourself, death of false things that haven't actually been working, but you've been putting all your energy into. Yeah. And just, this may mean physical passing for some people too. And I just want to like highlight that. Obviously with what's going on in the world right now, it's a heightened level of physical passing, but also it feels like big name people too might come up where you're like, whoa, okay, what happened there? We're already starting to see it now. Yeah. So just be really kind to yourself. And I cannot stress enough how much this week is about making yourself as comfortable as possible, which I don't want to necessarily say that means like go relax, because that might not make you all that comfortable. For me, sometimes relaxing makes me the reverse of comfortable. It gives me so much fucking anxiety because I didn't do the dishes and I don't know what's going on, and that's just me, and I have other things going on. But if you can relax, that's great. If you can get a bunch of work done and that makes you feel comfortable, that's great. If going outside and going on a walk makes you feel comfortable, that's great. Like whatever it is that makes you feel the most at home with yourself and let you feel comfortable in your space, that's the best thing to do. Sometimes with death stuff, I know that I process ego death, I process spiritual death, all those things, physical death. I do it by cleaning everything. Period. Everything is clean. So anytime I'm stressed, that's my best way of processing. And so I acknowledge that and let that be what it is. with the consciousness that if stuff is messy, I'm not taking that out on anybody, because it's just me freaking out that it's messy, and only freaking out that it's messy because I'm in this current time of processing some type of passing death tower card moment that I'm going through. So having that consciousness is going to be so beneficial as we dive into the energy that comes our way this weekend, literally starting with Mercury retrograde on Friday and then all the way through Wednesday.
Yeah. So we I think it's on like Monday the 17th. I can tell you dates. I can't tell you when they happen. Hang on a second. I'm actually going to look at this. 17th is the Monday. Cool. So on Monday the 17th, we do have this full moon. And, to really build on what you were saying, Mercury begins its retrograde in Aquarius, which is my 4th house. And I'm already like, I need a new desk. I need to redo my office. I need to redo my other room. I need everything to have a purpose. I need organization. And I've already started getting that antsiness. And when I'm processing changes, shifts, transformations in life, I tend to rant. And if it's not directed at an individual, they can get pretty funny. And so I tend to give myself something to rant about. And one of the things that my husband and I go through is I'll say, when I say you during this whole vent session, I'm not meaning you, I'm meaning like a collective you. Are you okay with that? And he'll be like, yeah, go for it. And so I will just pace and rant and go off. And if he laughs, it makes me feel better. So I actually enjoy that it makes somebody laugh because it relaxes me. And so if you're someone like that, maybe like journaling is something I always recommend to people, and I journal every day. But sometimes if I really need to express or release anxiety, it comes in the form of ranting. That is such a heart-opening experience for me. So I always find someone and say, are you prepared to just sit and listen to this for a second? Because I'm about to go off.
Even if you just rant to yourself on your phone, like filming it, but you're seeing yourself reflected back.
Or in a mirror.
Or in a mirror. It can be really, really helpful. I don't think you should post it places unless you feel aligned with that. That's not what I'm saying. But like if you film a video just for yourself so you can like rant it out and feel like it's meaning something, it can be really, really helpful. And you're receiving yourself at the same time with your reflection there coming back at you. Ranting is so healthy.
Like if you've ever had an imaginary argument with someone, which I know I have, you'd have that conversation and you already feel better. And then when it comes time to actually interact with a person regarding that topic, you've rehearsed it, you've processed how you feel about it. Then you can come with this clarity and detachment, which I'm going to get into now that we'll talk about the full moon, this detachment to the situation, because you've already felt your feelings and honored them and processed them. So now you can actually do something with them. So that's going to be an important thing to keep in mind during this full moon in Cancer. Now, normally a full moon in Cancer is like, yes, this is so great. And it still kind of is. There's some neat stuff going along with it, but I do want to put in here that there are a couple, I don't want to call them caveats, but there are things that are going to push you to transformation, where normally the moon in Cancer would be like, oh, I'm so comfy here. It's the moon floating and bobbing along in the ocean. Not so much with this one. Like the moon is in Cancer, the moon rules Cancer. So that's a good thing. The moon is full. It is filled with light. So that's pretty nice too. We have this culmination of what we've been going through over the last 2 weeks since the new moon in Capricorn. And so that automatically means when the moon is full that it is opposing the sun. It is giving us this both sides of the story kind of perspective between what we want and what we need, so that we can find the middle ground that helps us make the progress that we've been building over the last 2 weeks, so that we can resolve it over the next few weeks, which is why you release on a new moon or on a full moon, because you've now gotten this perspective of what you need and what you don't need. So you release the what you don't need so that you can resolve it into the next cycle, beginning with the next new moon. That's how the manifestation kind of cycle works with the astrology. And if we look at this, we just the day before had the sun, which we've already mentioned is opposite the moon because it is a full moon, conjunct in the same place as Pluto. So now the moon is also opposite Pluto. And Pluto is purging, transformation, rebirth even, right? So you think of death, you have to also think of rebirth. That's important to keep in mind with Pluto. It's not just the death. It is the cycle of reformation, of rebirth, of those things. So with the sun now still conjunct Pluto, actually, I'm going to update my chart here because the sun is still conjunct Pluto let me just type in some data so I can make sure I get this totally accurate.
No worries.
And for anybody who's interested, this is actually going to be at Eastern time. It will be at 6:49 p.m. is when the moon will be exact. So that's kind of perfect timing for doing your moon things in the evening if you're interested in that. So 6:49 p.m. the moon, yep, I got it. The moon will be in Cancer. The sun will be in Capricorn. The sun is at 27 degrees. Pluto is at 26. So that is separating, but not by a whole lot. So we're still kind of like, you know, it happened, but we're still looking at it like, whoa, that happened. And now the moon is activating with that too. And what it kind of feels like when you look at the sun conjunct Pluto, it's almost like a mini lunar eclipse. Because eclipses are, you know, a purging or a big beginning or a big end and those kinds of things, with Pluto being beginning and end, the cycle of death and rebirth, conjunct the sun opposite the moon. It's like this little like boop kind of eclipse energy. Now, this is one that normally with that eclipse, I would say don't work with it, because that is so collective. That is the, you know, getting everybody back on track. This is a transit one. So I'm not going to say you can't work with it. I'm going to say you want to consciously allow yourself to detach. So with releasing this time, I would say you want to really focus on releasing attachments too. And so that's kind of allowing, but it's actively saying, I notice that I have an attachment to this and I want to release that. So that is one thing to really keep in mind. Not only that, but this whole lunation, the full moon, is also the moon trine Neptune. We talked about Neptune a little bit ago with the sun and Neptune again dissolves those boundaries, makes things fuzzy, unclear. It can be like rose-colored glasses, or it can be like absolute confusion. And to me, it reminds me a little bit of the line from Hamilton, if you stand for nothing, what do you fall for? Because when things become confusing, if you don't know what you stand for, you might fall for anything. Because it's like building your house on sand instead of rock, right? If you've built your house on sand, when the tide comes in, you're lost you're swept up. But if you've built your house on rock, when the tide comes in, you're observing everything changing around you, but you're in a place where you can witness it rather than be swept up in it. That's the important thing to keep in mind when you're, you know, going through this. So as you're detaching, knowing what you stand for is going to be really helpful just with all of this going on. And another thing that I think, again, there are sides of a coin, right? This isn't bad. There is a positive way that you can use this. And I want to say a constructive way that you can use this, because I'm never going to promise that everything's going to feel like sunshine and rainbows. It might. It may feel fantastic. This is going to be in my 9th house. So I'm excited about revelations I might have. However, if I actively want to move with this energy, what I want to do is focus on the constructive, what I have control over. So this is something that I would dissolve the boundaries between my physical and my spiritual sense of self and say, how can my world better reflect what I want to see or what I feel? How can what I see in the physical world around me better reflect what I need on the inside? How can I be more honest and authentic outwardly as I am inwardly? You want to give yourself permission to actually be your full authentic self. Bring your full self to the table. Stop masking things, stop pretending about things, because Neptune is also illusion. And a lot of the time when we're in social situations, we tend to be illusionists. We show people what they want to see. And that may not always align with who we are. And then we get confused as to who we are. With this situation, this is an opportunity to really say, I know who I am. I want to know who I am. Or I allow myself to be reborn. First day of school kind of energy, right? Like every first day of school, we were like, I'm going to dress this way this year. And this is my first impression. And it doesn't matter who I was even a week ago with the friends I saw over the summer. Now I'm this. And that's an awesome opportunity.
One way I recommend doing that for this particular full moon, and I've done this exercise quite a bit before over the many years of therapy and other things that I've been through, but if you can sit down and write things to yourself that you wish other people would say to you, that is a really, really good way of getting to know yourself. And it seems almost counterintuitive because you're like, I'm just complimenting myself. No, you're not. You're going to say other things that are not just compliments, I guarantee. but also it's going to give you a huge window into who you actually are, what you actually need, what you value, things that inspire you, all those different things, while giving you a really powerful energetic cathartic release.
Mhm.
And that is a really awesome thing to do for this full moon, like when I look at the energy of it, because it definitely feels like all those things you're cathartically releasing during that activity are genuinely going to like burn off energetically for you and help you get to that, this is who I am, this is who I want to be in the world moment. I also do want to highlight, because again, I'm same as Krista, I never am going to sit here and be like, everything's going to be butterflies for you. Isn't that so exciting? It's not how life is. It could be, which is amazing. We all have times when everything is butterflies, and that's awesome. But a lot of this kind of detachment, a lot of the releasing is going to feel a little bit forced, almost like you are forced into it. Like, and sometimes that feels good. You're like, wow, I was forced into this awesome thing that turned out to work perfectly. And sometimes it feels like a lot of resistance because change is hard and detachment doesn't always feel the most comfortable and those kinds of things. So if you're feeling like pushed, like plummeted into this situation, yeah, you are, because there's so many things lining up to do that for you. It is literally a domino effect to make you reassess your foundations, to make you rebuild, to make you look at different things a different way that is more authentically you. But sometimes we have resistance there. And so it's important to honor and understand that if that resistance coming up, it's not going to stop this from happening. For the lack of a better way of saying that.
Life is happening for you.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how comfortable the moment is as it's going on and as it's unfolding.
Yeah. Whenever we have resistance, I'm like, okay, we're fighting against something, but it's not going to stop it from happening if it's supposed to happen. For like, that's how we made this plan. We joined this team and here we go. Like, that's how the energy is in our life. So just important to note. And if that resistance coming up, it's just another window and gateway into understanding and knowing yourself on a deeper level.
Yeah. And speaking of that, that's a really great segue into during this lunation, we also have Venus, which is retrograde, is kind of coming into a trine with Uranus, which is also still retrograde, just for a few more days at this point. And so Uranus, revolutionary, saying like, let's change this up. You know, it's, there's like a dance. I can't remember what it is, but if you think about switching it up and doing something like, I was doing this, I'm doing this now. And that's fine. Like just following the interest. That is something that may be happening in your relationships, but also with just your interests. Venus is as much into her interests as much as she is into the relationships between people and things. And relationships are about interest. If you have a relationship with something, it's because there's an interest in it. So you can see how they all fall into the same archetype of Venus. And so what we're looking at there, especially with Venus retrograding through Capricorn, is we're looking for supportive, foundational change in the relationships. We want to find things that we can trust. And this for Venus has been an 8-year cycle since the last time she did a retrograde in Capricorn. So if you think back 8 years or so and see what kind of themes are coming up for you then, they may be replaying right now. And you're saying, hey, I need authenticity. I need something real. I need something that I can rely on. And then I will move forward and we can work on that. But again, it's workshopping. That's what a lot of retrograde energy is about. So during this, we have Mercury retrograde, we have Venus retrograde, Uranus is still retrograde, but again, that's pretty far out there. It's been a while. Those two, Mercury and Venus, are quite personal. That's your relationships. That's the way you communicate and connect with people and with things around you. So it's really about saying, hey, this needs to be reliable because I've got things to do. So I'm going to take these few weeks, really workshop this stuff, make sure everything's running, you know, do the maintenance on the car or whatever, and then we're off. So that's important to keep in mind. Also realizing that under, you know, for most of this year, we are still under the effects of that Saturn square Uranus that happened back in December for the last time exact, but still pretty close a couple times this year. And that is still conjunct Mercury. So we're laying down new boundaries. And that's a great way to say, can I trust you? Because this is what I need in order to be able to trust. This is my boundary. This is what I allow in, and this is what I can offer. Those are boundaries. It's as much I will not tolerate this as it is I will tolerate this. Yeah. So people often forget when they think boundaries just means cutting things off and saying no. Boundaries is deciding what is no and what is yes. If it's a hard no, if it's a hard yes. Those are, what are your boundaries? What qualifies as a hard no? What qualifies as a hard yes? There you go. So when you're thinking about things, if you're feeling it out and you're like, I'm not really sure, there is no firm boundary there. You can do the research. You have the time now and the perfect energy to dig into that and be like, yeah, but if it were a no, why would it be a no? And if it were a yes, what would make it a yes? And taking yourself through that journey would be really helpful as well. So dissolving boundaries so that you can reform them is the perfect kind of energy we are in right now. And that's why the affirmation that I have for this lunation is, I trust myself to make wise decisions.
I just dropped a crystal.
Oh my gosh. I was like, that seems interesting. What was that?
She like looked at me and I was like, oh shit. Trust myself to make wise decisions. Down goes the rose quartz. Oh
Wow.
Alive. It did not break. But hilariously enough, when I was having everybody talk to me, which they've kind of quieted down now, though I have a couple people sitting behind me. One of the things they kept yelling is that I need to buy crystals, which they've been yelling at me for a couple of weeks, but I like haven't been doing it because I've been putting it off.
Yeah.
And so then now, like, as you're giving me the affirmation for this full moon, they make me drop one, which I think is fucking hilarious. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. I've been getting a lot of like, I need to buy plants. I need to like build an apothecary kind of in my house of plants and herbs and whatever, and put crystals in the soil and just like really charge up the house. Because this house I'm a minimalist. And so I've never been one to really put a ton on my walls and stuff. But for some reason, I need clearer air, cleaner air, and charged air and intention in every room. So that's what I've been led to do. So it makes sense if you're kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah. I am not a minimalist. I am definitely a shiny person. And so I feel most comfort with all of my internal kind of world being external around me all the time.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that like
sorry, just thinking about the difference between a Libra rising, ooh, shiny, pretty, I like this, it feels good, and the Scorpio rising, which is like, why?
Yeah.
What does this mean for me on a deeper level?
Yeah. For me, I'm like, I want to look around the entire house and feel my personality there, like, and feel the comfort that comes with clutter and things like that. Cause it does feel comfortable. It feels like a nest. Anyway,
I love
it's
that.
not like a hoarding situation, because if it gets too much clutter, I throw everything away. But I like the like little sentimental things, like collect a lot of stuff, like that kind of thing. I'm very much a crow. Like, let's put it that way.
I love that. I love that so much.
I am very much a crow. Does everything mean something? Yes. Does everything look like it means something? No, not at all. But
does it have to? No.
Oh, it just needs to be here, and I like it. But on that note, I also have like handwritten notes all over my house. It's just I'm a crow. But I haven't ever like invested in like not high ticket crystals, but like larger ones that are like prominent, that I can have around, that are imbued and polished with energy other than the ones that I've been given, and that kind of thing. And that's the space I need to be in. And I know that I just don't.
We should just go to a crystal show together.
We
go to a crystal show together.
Let's do it.
We'll meet up and go crystal shopping. That sounds fantastic.
We could go to the Arizona. Is it there's a
Sedona?
huge gem show in Arizona.
I'm not surprised.
We could go there and go to the gem show, and then we could do like Sedona. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. Anyway, back to our listeners. Neptune, you guys,
we'll bring you with us.
we'll do a show about crystals and stuff. So let us know what your interest is in that. Maybe that's why we had to bring it up during this episode.
Yeah. Or just tell us what your favorite crystal is. Go to the YouTube, watch this one, and tell us your favorite crystal and why. And if it's because of what people tell you it does for you, that's amazing. If it's because you just like this one piece, I have a obsidian Pikachu dressed as Kakashi from Naruto that I love like nobody's business. Why? Because he's a Pikachu dressed like Kakashi that someone chose to carve out of obsidian, and I like it. So you can start it that way.
So first of all, obsidian, very Saturnian, perfect. And you know exactly why. That Pikachu is helping you set your boundaries on your interests.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
So you just gave us the perfect example of this whole Venus, Neptune, Saturn, whatever thing that I've been talking about. So thank you.
You're
if
welcome.
You bought a Pikachu dressed as Kakashi shaped obsidian crystal because you like it and not because of anybody else's opinion. That is literally my apply it suggestion is check in with your priorities. Are they yours or someone else's?
Mm.
And you just gave us the perfect example for that. So
tell that to the 16 books I bought on ancient Rome this week.
Research. That's so important. Guys, she is writing a book, a novel about ancient Rome. Like, spoilers ahead. Keep in touch with us to see how that unfolds.
But just that level of like, that is purely a my interest. Like,
yep.
To such an like, if you have a special interest, invest in it this week, 100%.
Yeah.
Any of your special interests that are so distinctly yours. And it's a very specific period of ancient Rome too. It's not like a very large window. We're talking like 100 years of ancient Roman history, and it's just that time. But like that kind of thing, like very narrow in on your stuff that is specifically for you and no one else, or to please anyone else.
Yes, that is exactly right. And speaking of that, so this is one that it deserves more time than we can give it on a podcast episode. So I really encourage you to check out the January forecast on our YouTube and look at the Nodal Shift from Gemini Sagittarius into Taurus Scorpio. That officially happens on the 18th. So the day after, this is a busy couple days. You have the 17th with the full moon, you have the 18th with this shift, and on the same day, Uranus will go direct. So Uranus, which has been retrograde for a while and saying, hey, we're going to build up to some change. We're going to do some change under the surface. Now we're going to make that change happen. Mm-hmm. We're going to make it where we can see it. Right at the same time that the nodes shift. It's like a collective priority shift is what this is. So whereas they were in Gemini and Sagittarius before, the North Node being in Gemini, connection, communication, how can we all see each other, understand each other, connect with each other, and actually care about everybody's, on an intellectual level. And the South Node saying, where can we explore that we've been? What do we know? What have we gleaned from where we've been? And how can we apply that with our curiosity moving forward? We did that for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. Surprising, isn't it? And now we're moving into Taurus North Node and Scorpio South Node. And like I said, there's so much that can be said about that. But basically, the way I think we're going to see this show up in the collective, again, check your chart for where these nodes are going to be in your chart. I know it's hitting my 1st and 7th house, so I'm interested. I'm curious to see where this is going to go. So many people are like, should I be scared? No, you should never be scared.
Also, it's 2 of your big 3.
I know my sun and my moon and my rising. It's like all of my big 3 actually, because my moon and my rising are Scorpio.
Are both Scorpio. Oh my God, it's all of your big 3.
And my sun is over. Yeah. So the North Node is going to be with my sun. The South Node is going to hit my rising and my moon. And I'm one of the people that would think, should I be scared? But I've decided I'm curious to see how this can show up because I know it's coming. Mm-hmm. So I know that anything super detrimental, I'm going to be able to witness and integrate and really use for me because I know that it's supposed to happen. Knowing that this is divine, that this is allowed, that this is intentional, makes a situation easier to flow with, even if it is not a comfortable one. I'm going through an uncomfortable situation right now in my life, but I know that there's meaning and purpose behind it. It makes me keep faith that things are moving as they should be, that I am on track, that whatever's happening will resolve in, even though it's not the perfect way, it'll still be, as it should be, and I can survive it, those things. So if you're going through things, that's fine. The South Node on my moon, I anticipate that being quite an interesting journey, but that's how I'm choosing to see it. It's going to be an internal journey. It's going to be something of, here's how far you've come, and now maybe we can release that. So I'm looking forward to that because there are some things that I would very much like to be able to let go of. That's something that I can now say, ooh, this opportunity for transformation, because again, the eclipses help us see where the nodes are going to be. So you'll find that the eclipses this year will be happening in Taurus and Scorpio, because that's where the nodes are. So for the next year and a half, they'll be alternating between Taurus and Scorpio. So that's a really fun fact to keep in mind. Again, check where it is in your chart. Just know you're going through a time of really big beginnings and really big conclusions. Not endings, but because I know people will get charged up if we say endings, but it's conclusions, it's resolutions in those areas, something finishing so that something new can begin.
Feels like revelations more than anything.
That would definitely be like your Taurian side, something new that reveals itself because of everything you've been through from the Scorpio side, for sure.
Yeah.
So again, check on that video for a lot more about that. It's just a lot of collective moving toward and collective where we've come from. And, thinking about it, I've been explaining it as we're learning to paint with the colors of the wind. And I know that's a song from Pocahontas, which can be kind of problematic when you look at it. But if you think about it, where that song, at least in the lyrics, saying, I integrate myself and count myself among nature and respect nature and, think of the earth as a part of me. I really think that's a direction we're heading in, which is sustainability, which is, more organic availability, more, health focus, that kind of stuff, I think is really coming up for us. I do have a video on my TikTok that goes into some more practical detail. You can check it out there. I tried to keep it pretty short. So that's another resource to look into for specifics on that. My TikTok, in case anybody's interested, is at The Real KristaLyn, just in case there are any imposters, because I am Scorpio rising, but that's an astrologer joke that maybe not everyone else would get, but it's fine. Anyway,
your expression, you were like, and then you're like, nope, no,
maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Maybe they do. But yeah, so Scorpio likes to imagine they're very secretive. So that was my joke there. And then on the 19th, we do come into Aquarius season. The interesting thing about Aquarius season is the sun is in detriment in Aquarius. And if you think about that, especially from a Northern Hemisphere perspective, which is where a lot of this stuff was defined, the sun is in detriment because the sun can't sun when the days are this short. It just doesn't get its time in the sky at that point. And I know that that's a different physical manifestation in the Southern Hemisphere, but the energy of it, definitely see what's going on in your hemisphere around you. But the sun is considered to be in detriment in Aquarius. And so as we enter into this next month, it is taking us right up to that Pluto return, which happens in Pisces season. So we're not quite there yet, but you can see the breadcrumbs leading up to it throughout this season, because we are working on integrating information with society and the work environment around us. So how things are going with work and society and people and that kind of stuff. Aquarius is the humanitarian of the zodiac. So it is society, it is the people, and not the person necessarily, but the people, all of us, and that collective that every individual is a part of. Like if you think of a breadcrumb as compared to the whole loaf of bread, Aquarius is the loaf of bread that the crumb is a part of. So it's still very much about you, but it's about you as a piece of this puzzle. And so we do have during this, the Leo moon on this day will trine Mars in Sagittarius. So there's this rising focus on the people and their needs for growth as a group, their needs for being seen, for being appreciated and recognized and acknowledged as a group. And I think that's, of course, we're seeing this already. This is probably not a surprise, right? Headlines are already giving this away. We're also seeing that, Venus is still trine Uranus. So we're preparing to really apply those changes in our interests. We're preparing to say, hey, I now understand much better where my boundaries are, what I need. And a lot of people seem to agree with this. So now we are receiving what we need, the support energetically and in the world around us to make these changes, to make this happen. And so, that involves a lot of, with this whole Mercury retrograde conjunct the sun at this point. I think this is moving towards that cazimi that Mercury gets. Hang on, if I move a couple days ahead here, just 2, I will see a little bit more. And of course I have my thing set to minutes. Let's go days. So yeah, Mercury is approaching its cazimi with the sun. It's getting in range to conjoin with the sun, which will be at that point in like 3 or so days, halfway through the Mercury retrograde. Yay. But actually, no, I'm wrong. I was looking at the wrong thing because the symbols were similar. So I'm not sure what I'm looking at there. I'm looking at the wrong day. Anyway, so it's still like a week out, but it's within range to be considered conjunct. It's under the beams of the sun. So the sun is affecting Mercury. That is the correction that I'm looking for. Thank you. So we're reviewing Mercury retrograde, things in our infrastructure, that Saturn ruled sign that now the sun is in as well.
Yep.
Saturn is also in this sign. We're reviewing infrastructure that is not functioning to its greatest capacity. That's how I choose to say this. And that is infrastructures and systems leading up to the US Pluto return, which happens later in February, which I think is really going to say, hey, these are the things that we now notice. Let's do something about it. They're not working as they should. Let's fix this stuff. And let's rebirth the way that we do things here. And I think that's going to be a great opportunity. And again, with Aquarius being so involved, it's that whole, the people deserve to be acknowledged in this system, in this structure. I think that's something that a lot of people can agree on. And that is where we are headed. Astrology doesn't do politics. It talks about people and conditions. And I think I do my best to also remove myself from that as well. So what I'm seeing in astrology is a reform, a restructure for people, with people in mind. And that is where I will kind of keep those keywords. And I'm sure that closer to the return, we'll do an episode on it and dive deeper. But I want to leave it at that for now, just because it's not here yet. But during this month, if you happen to see headlines where it's like, this isn't working, this we've noticed isn't working, people are unsatisfied or dissatisfied with the way this works, that's not surprising, because we need to know what's not working in order to be able to fix it. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind. So you don't, worry yourself too much or worry yourself at all. Just know, oh, hey, that's supposed to be happening right now. This is the perfect time to acknowledge what's not working to the best of its ability and make sure that we gather the resources to fix that and shore it up. So the affirmation for Aquarius season is, I change the world with my choices, my energy, and my attention. That's how you as an individual can make a difference.
I like that. I would, with Aquarius season, and just to be aware of this, when I told Krista this before we started recording, but when I was an HR manager at a ski resort, I made sure that every single day of the week during all Aquarius season, always there was an employee event happening for the employees. Because if you've ever had a New Year's resolution that you've set in the first 2 weeks, it goes great and then it drops off. It's Aquarius season. It's literally that coming into your space of Aquarius season coming in and being like, yeah, well, seasonal effect, the sun doesn't sun right now. So I'm just going to jam up all the things you're doing. So if you have the consciousness there, you can kind of hack your way out of that a little bit by doing things like, I highly recommend scheduling something fun or meaningful for you to do every day of the week, like consistently, just for during this time. If you want to carry it on after that, by all means, go for it. But if it's like Monday nights I journal, and Tuesday nights I knit, and Thursday nights I watch Netflix, at like whatever it is that is like anchoring for you, so you know what you're looking forward to help you navigate through this, so it doesn't feel like you're so much afloat and it's still fun and you have things each day to look forward to, do that. I highly recommend doing that, especially with this one.
If you are a listener in the Southern Hemisphere, I'd be curious to see what Aquarius season, so that mid-January to mid to late February timeframe, feels like for you on average. So think about generally what February feels like for you and let me know, because I would love to just observe how this shows up in your conditions and energy and the nature of your space. So go ahead and comment on the video on YouTube. Let us know what that's like for you, because that's a curiosity of mine. And the more I can know, the more I can try to integrate it into our interpretations as well.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you listening. Please let us know your favorite crystal. Let us know thoughts that you're having, whatever it is that's coming up to you. You can comment on our YouTube. If you have ideas around things to talk about or questions you have, anything like that, you can email us, forgottenstorytellers@gmail.com, which we are still looking for Forgotten Storytellers stuff. So if you have a pitch for a messy fiction novel, by all means, that's the place to send that as well. If you would like it to write it in your alignment with your astrological divine timing and your spirit guides, that's what our program does. So we are still open for those. But it's filling up really fast. So if you're thinking about it and you want to do it now.
Thank you guys for submitting your stories. They've been really awesome to look into, and we are excited to see what else is coming in as well. If you feel like this is the right time for you, give it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. But we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we hope that during this week of a lot of fun stuff, you do find ways to go make some magic.
Yes. That was the best one yet.
We did it. Oh, bye everybody.
Bye.